Our story begins in ancient Mesopotamia, in what is now modern-day Iraq. In that fertile stretch of land lying between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, where some of the world's earliest civilizations took root, people began to notice a bizarre natural phenomenon. In certain places, a dark, thick, and incredibly sticky liquid would naturally seep out from cracks in the earth. It possessed a pungent odor, its color was pitch black, and it behaved entirely differently from water. No one knew exactly what it was. But humanity's greatest strength has always been its curiosity. Gradually, people began experimenting with this mysterious substance, and soon, they discovered a highly unique property. Wherever this thick liquid was applied, it became completely waterproof. This marked the very first practical use of oil in human history. The Sumerians began using this natural bitumen to waterproof their wooden boats. The benefits were immediate. Boats lasted much longer, extended river journeys became safer, and waterborne trade began to flourish. Soon after, a new thought emerged. If this substance could hold back water, perhaps it could strengthen buildings as well. They began using it as a mortar between bricks. Walls became far stronger and more durable. Even today, archaeologists excavating the ancient ruins of Babylon find traces of this natural bitumen. To the people of that era, it was simply a highly useful material. No one paused to wonder how it was formed deep beneath the earth. As time passed, the use of this black substance spread from Mesopotamia to Egypt. But here, its role completely changed. The ancient Egyptians viewed death not as an end, but as the beginning of a new journey. Therefore, during the mummification process, various natural substances were used to preserve the body for eternity. And in some regions, natural bitumen was a key ingredient. Later on, the Arabic word mumia began to be used for natural bitumen, which eventually gave us the modern word mummy. The very same substance that waterproofed boats and strengthened buildings was now being used to preserve the bodies of pharaohs against the ravages of time. But the story of oil wasn't limited to the Middle East and North Africa. Around the same time, thousands of miles away in the Sichuan province of China, people had also become familiar with this mysterious black liquid. The difference was that the Chinese didn't just collect what seeped to the surface. They invented a way to extract it from the earth. Long, hollow bamboo pipes were driven deep into the ground, acting as the world's first drill pipes, to bring natural gas and this black liquid to the surface. Wherever possible, it was used to generate heat and light. For the first time, humans were learning to harness the energy hidden deep underground, without fully understanding what they were actually using. Following this, the black substance revealed a much darker side. In ancient Persia, highly flammable oil and natural asphalt were adapted for warfare. According to historians, these materials were used to create flaming arrows and incendiary weapons. A substance that was keeping boats afloat in one part of the world was being used to burn down enemy fortresses in another. Humanity was beginning to realize that this liquid wasn't just useful, it was incredibly powerful. Meanwhile, in ancient Greece, this mysterious substance was viewed through an entirely different lens. Greek physicians began using natural oil and bitumen to treat skin conditions and joint pains. They didn't know the exact science behind it, but modern research confirms that certain natural components of crude oil do possess antibacterial properties. Once again, ancient experience pointed toward the right direction, centuries before modern science could explain it. By now, great civilizations like Mesopotamia, Egypt, China, Persia, and Greece were utilizing this black substance in their own unique ways. It was building ships, constructing monuments, healing wounds, and fighting wars. Yet despite all these uses, not a single human being on Earth actually knew what this black liquid was. How did it form inside the Earth? And how did it stay hidden underground for millions of years? Humanity wouldn't find the answers to these questions until much later. Even today, a popular myth persists that oil is made from the remains of dinosaurs. But the truth is entirely different. The story of oil predates the dinosaurs by millions of years. It begins roughly 300 to 400 million years ago. The Earth looked completely different back then. Where we now have massive continents, there were vast, shallow oceans. These ancient oceans were teeming with trillions of microscopic organisms, microalgae, plankton, and other marine life so small they couldn't be seen with the naked eye. When these microorganisms died, their remains drifted to the dark depths of the ocean floor. Year after year, century after century, new layers of silt, sand, and mud covered them. This relentless process continued for millions of years. Slowly, these biological remains were buried deeper and deeper into the Earth's crust. But simply being buried doesn't create oil. The real transformation requires two immense forces: extreme heat and crushing pressure. As the biological matter sank deeper, the temperature and pressure spiked. Over millions of years, these forces essentially cooked the organic material, first turning it into a waxy substance that scientists call kerogen. Then, when the temperature reached a crucial window of roughly 60 to 120 degrees Celsius, this kerogen began to break down and transform into crude oil. If the temperature rose even higher, it baked further into natural gas. Oil isn't made in a day. It requires a geological recipe that takes millions of years to complete. But the journey of oil doesn't end where it is born. Because oil is less dense than water, it naturally tries to migrate upward through microscopic pores in the rock. If it encounters an impermeable solid rock layer that it cannot pass through, it becomes trapped beneath it. This is how massive underground oil reservoirs are formed. This is exactly why oil is rarely found exactly where it is created. For thousands of years, humanity remained blissfully unaware of this massive geological process. They only used the tiny fraction of oil that naturally seeped to the surface. They had no idea that beneath their feet lay oceanic reserves of energy that would eventually change the world. If oil was down there, why couldn't it be pumped out? By the mid-19th century, this became the defining question of the era. The world was changing rapidly. In Europe and America, the Industrial Revolution was in full swing. Cities were exploding in population, factories were running round the clock, and the demand for artificial light had skyrocketed. At the time, homes and streets were primarily illuminated using whale oil. But this led to a massive problem. Whales were being hunted to near extinction, making whale oil incredibly scarce and violently expensive. The world desperately needed a new fuel. A glimmer of hope arrived in 1846 when a Canadian geologist named Abraham Gessner discovered how to distill a clean-burning, relatively safe fuel from crude oil. He called it kerosene. Within a few years, it became the most popular lighting fuel in the world. People finally realized that if they could find large quantities of crude oil, an unimaginably huge industry could be born. But the problem remained: where to find it? Most people believed finding oil was sheer luck. If it seeped out, great. If not, there was no way to hunt for it. But every massive shift in history is driven by someone who refuses to think like everyone else. That man was Edwin Drake. Interestingly, Drake was not a scientist, not an engineer, and certainly not a geologist. He was an unemployed former railway conductor who had been hired by a struggling oil company and sent to Pennsylvania. His mission? drill into the earth and see if oil could be pumped up like water. Months passed. The money dried up and his investors lost faith. But Drake refused to quit. He kept drilling. Finally, on August 27, 1859, in the quiet town of Titusville, Pennsylvania, at a depth of just 69 feet, a dark liquid bubbled up his drill pipe. It was the exact same substance the ancient Mesopotamians had seen centuries ago. Only this time, mankind wasn't waiting for it to seep out. Mankind had reached down and taken it. This was the world's first successful commercial oil well. That single discovery didn't just produce oil, it birthed an entirely new global industry. Within months, thousands of prospectors flooded into Pennsylvania. Quiet farmlands were suddenly swallowed by forests of wooden drilling derricks. Land prices exploded, and ordinary farmers became overnight millionaires. But amidst this chaos, there was one man whose eyes were not on the drilling, but on the entire game. He realized that the real wealth wasn't in finding the oil, but in controlling it. That man would go on to become the most powerful industrialist in history, John D. Rockefeller. While the world was obsessed with drilling, Rockefeller saw a fractured, chaotic industry. Oil prices would swing wildly. A millionaire today could be bankrupt tomorrow if a well ran dry. Rockefeller made a calculated decision that separated him from the pack. Instead of risking his money on drilling, he invested entirely in refining and transportation. Crude oil straight from the ground was useless. It had to be refined into kerosene and lubricants to have any value. In 1863, Rockefeller built his first refinery. As kerosene demand boomed, so did his wealth. But his true genius was ruthlessness. He understood that whoever controlled the transportation of oil controlled the entire market. He struck secret deals with the major railroad companies, securing massive discounts that his competitors couldn't get. With significantly lower shipping costs, Rockefeller slashed his kerosene prices. Competitors were bled dry. When they faced bankruptcy, Rockefeller bought them out for pennies on the dollar. In 1870, he consolidated his empire into a single titan, Standard Oil. Within a decade, Standard Oil controlled an astonishing 90% of all the oil refined in the United States. Rockefeller became unfathomably wealthy. Adjusted for modern inflation, his net worth is estimated to have been around $400 billion. But his monopoly frightened the U.S. government. In 1911, the Supreme Court ordered Standard Oil to be dismantled into dozens of smaller companies. The government thought this would destroy Rockefeller. Instead, the combined stock prices of the new companies skyrocketed, and Rockefeller, who held shares in all of them, became even richer. During this corporate drama, a technological revolution was quietly brewing. Until now, oil was mainly a source of light. But a new invention was about to change the destiny of oil forever: the internal combustion engine. In 1886, a German engineer named Carl Benz built the first successful gasoline-powered car. At first, it was a novelty, but in 1908, Henry Ford launched the Model T. By pioneering the assembly line, Ford made cars cheap enough for the average person to buy. Suddenly, millions of cars were rolling onto American roads. Trucks, buses, and tractors quickly followed. The world was shifting from steam and coal to gasoline and diesel. Oil was no longer just providing light, it was providing the motion for the entire modern economy. As the world's addiction to oil grew, a terrifying question arose. Where would all this oil come from? Until the early 20th century, the U.S. was the undisputed king of oil production. But geologists began to suspect that massive reserves were hiding elsewhere. In 1908, a British expedition struck a massive oil reserve in Persia, modern-day Iran, marking the Middle East's entry into the oil age. But the true shockwave came decades later. In 1932, exploration began in the deserts of Saudi Arabia. After years of heartbreaking failures, many believed there was no oil there at all. But in 1938, a well known as Dammam No. 7 struck an ocean of oil. This single discovery changed the destiny of Saudi Arabia forever. Soon, colossal reserves were uncovered in Kuwait, Iraq, Abu Dhabi, and across the Persian Gulf. The world realized that the true center of global oil was not beneath the soil of America, but beneath the sands of the Middle East. Western companies rushed in, striking highly favorable deals that left the host nations with a fraction of the profits. But as time went on, these nations realized the immense leverage they held. The modern world simply could not function without their oil. In 1960, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, and Venezuela banded together to form OPEC. Their goal was to take back control of their resources and dictate oil prices. The Western world didn't take OPEC seriously at first, but in 1973, everything changed. During the Yom Kippur War, when Western nations supported Israel, the Arab members of OPEC retaliated by enforcing an oil embargo. The taps were turned off. The result was catastrophic. Global oil prices quadrupled overnight. Massive lines formed at gas stations, factories ground to a halt, and inflation skyrocketed. For the first time, humanity understood a chilling reality. Modern civilization was entirely at the mercy of oil. When we look back at this incredible journey, it is not just the story of a black liquid. It is the story of human civilization itself. 4,000 years ago, Mesopotamian farmers stared at a sticky substance seeping from the rocks. They couldn't have imagined that this very substance would one day build the largest corporations on Earth, crown the wealthiest individuals in history, dictate global politics, and power an entire modern world. Oil gave humanity light, speed, and industry, but it also taught us a profound lesson. When an entire global civilization becomes dependent on a single resource, that resource becomes both its greatest strength and its ultimate vulnerability.